This offseason has been incredibly eventful, and I only expect that to continue. And one of the teams that's kind of caught my eye with some of the moves that they've made, even going back into season 2, is the Washington Justice. Now, this is a team that I have not been very kind to in the past, and I do that out of love. I do that out of respect for the game and competition. I think that things with that organization, that team, were very much mismanaged. And, clean slate in 2020. So far, so good. So we're going to take a look at some of these moves and break them down as we see them. So first we have Annalyn and John Galt coming in from Gladiators to run the front office as respective general manager and head coach. Hopefully I've got those titles correct. John Galt and Annalyn both seem to have good heads on their shoulders, but it's very difficult to kind of gauge how well they're going to do being thrown into a new organization, and B, moves up in terms of the respective titles from my memory. I believe Annalyn was I know she worked with Team USA and did a lot of the managerial stuff there, but for Gladiators, I think she wore a lot of different hats. And John Galt as well, assistant going into head coach. I'm interested to see exactly who he brings with him and what kind of team he's looking to build, and how that goes for him. So it's difficult to kind of say how I feel about that. There's not a lot of feeling, kind of apathetic. We'll have to see. Put a pin in that one. In general, like, we're gonna have to finish this off at a later date once we actually get the full Justice rebuild. So I'm sure we'll have a second look through come February. But so far, good people that have done, seemingly good work in the past, now running the show. That's never a bad thing, at the very least. Then we have Corey and Stratus re-signed. Solid. I think that in the 2-2-2 meta, that's going to benefit them in the long run. This is probably what Justice was aiming for at some point. I think they've gone on the record in saying that. Now, I don't think this is some, 4D underwater basket weaving that, the former coaching staff was building for a completely different meta and was trying to, get ahead of the game. That I don't think was happening, but I do suspect that they were trying to build for a franchise and not specifically for a meta. They completely bombed out of that said meta, but I think they were trying to create a very colorless roster that was always going to do okay. But I don't think they necessarily had all of the pieces in place to do that. I think they had a couple gems, and I think these two, at the very least, are rough diamonds, right? I think Corey is a fantastic hit scan. I think he's going to do very, very well at World Cup in particular, as much weight as that holds. And both of them did very well in Stage 4 last season. So I think that this is a good duo to start with. I do want to see a couple more pieces added to that DPS lineup to really solidify it and strengthen it. I think Corey is probably going to be a mainstay no matter what. Stratus is the one where I'm very question, heavy on. I don't know exactly what he can play. His May looked fantastic. But there again, what kind of hero pool are we going to see, and how can that compete with some of the best players in the world? I'm still, up for debate on that. And Corey as well with a fantastic Hanzo. Again, good baseline. I want to see improvements come February. I want to see a couple more players added, maybe to fill out some of those hero pool, not flaws, but holes that Stratus may or may not have, and really give another semi-star DPS to play alongside Corey, and use Stratus more as like a Swiss Army knife, kind of like flexible where and when you need him, and use him like that. I think would be the best bet. And that's, again, speculation. I know absolutely nothing. But yeah, all in all, solid DPS signings. Then we have ELLIVOTE and Lolshish from Angry Titans fame and from their years in Contenders. I think this duo is going to be their baseline, probably as a franchise going forward. I think these three players, Stratus, ELLIVOTE, and Lolshish, are going to make up the identity of the Justice going forward. I think that would be a fantastic, pillar. There are a couple pillars to build off of. And as a tank line, these two players have, a ton of history playing with Angry Titans in the past, and they're two childhood friends, so they have a lot of just inherent synergy, which I think is fantastic. And I think that's going to lend itself to mitigating a lot of the stress that 2020 is bringing along with it. I think when you have somebody that is a close friend, that can be a very big boon for, mitigating any kind of worries, homesickness. Again, these are 18 to maybe 25-year-old, kids that, again, don't have a ton of life experience. Having somebody that and can kind of be your anchor is going to be super important. And that's something that they can kind of rely on. Good tank players all around. I think that these signings have gone criminally under the veil of some of the bigger signings that have gone on in the postseason, because this happened last season towards the end. These are two players that I think are going to do very well for themselves as long as Justice, continues with their upward trend of the postseason. So again, very excited to see them on the Overwatch League stage and seeing what they can do against some of the best players in the world. Then we have Roar coming in from the Gladiators, and that was not somebody I kind of expected to come with Gladiators. I assumed that with John Galt working with the players on Gladiators, that he was going to not persuade, but bring players along with him to fill out the Justice roster. I assumed that was going to be Hydration. I assumed that was going to be Big Goose, and I assumed that was going to be Shaz. Didn't expect Roar to come over with what looks like a predominantly Western roster. Now, it's not to say that Roar can't play with a Western roster, because he did last season. It's just a little strange. What does this mean going forward? Does this mean anything? Is this going to be a mixed roster? Is it going to be mostly Western with a couple Koreans? What kind of mix are we going with Justice? Is this just a signing to take main tanks off the table because they are going to be very sought out after going forward? I think with the role lock in place, that I think main tank and DPS as a role have significantly increased in value, whereas a couple other roles probably have been slowly kind of dying off due to how dense the talent is in those locations, as well as being able to potentially in certain metas have very individual heavy carries, which lends itself to the DPS players. Not to mention, historically, when we see teams do very well, it's off the backs of the main tanks really being the cornerstone of a lot of these different strategies. If it's Gesture, if it's Fissure, Miro kind of reinventing Winston, the main tanks are very pivotal in long-term success and success in general. So this could be kind of just taking him off the market, using him at a later date. I don't actually know. It's still very strange. I think his stock in general was very high coming off of Kongdu Panthera's performance in Contenders. And I don't believe that necessarily carried over into Gladiators. I don't know if that's due to the team not being fully Korean. I don't know. I just know that it was not what was expected. I kind of expected him to do a little bit better than what he did. He had a couple flashes of brilliance, but for the most part, I thought he was kind of underwhelming, and that could just be from the stock, just being so excited to see him on Gladiators, and then him not really, the team in general, not performing as well as they should have, probably, with Decay and Roar and all these fantastic players. But all in all, I think Justice is off to a good start, much like Houston. And I hope I can say the same thing about Florida. Again, if you're a Justice, if you're a Washington fan, this is cause for celebration. So far, this roster does look good. Now in comparison to their peers, how is this going to stack out? I don't know just yet. We really don't know until February, and that's we'll revisit this and review it and see how exactly they kind of shake out. I'll definitely be doing power rankings, and I'm excited to not put Justice last for once. This is going to be really fun. I'm excited to see this team play. And let me know down in the comment section Who else would you put on this roster? Who would you put in with Corey and Stratus? Let me know your guys's. If you're playing GM, who do you put with them? Let me know. Because I'm not sure myself. With Roar, could they put a Korean talent there? Off the top of my head, I can't even think of anything myself, but that would be kind of interesting to see if this team really does go fully kind of, really leans into the mixed roster hype. I know Yiska is very high on that. And I think that's generally how things are going to progress in Overwatch, but we'll see. But yeah, if you like the video, let me know. And I'll see you on social media, and check out the Tactical Crouch podcast Tuesdays at 11 Pacific, 1 Eastern, I think 2 Eastern, something like that. But yeah, I will see you guys. I've been rambling enough. Adios.